Welcome to Paradigm, the interview series where we look into the ethics of artificial intelligence and its implications for online safety and today's youth. I'm your host, Ruhani Surana, and I'm honored to introduce Dr. Tapan Singhel, the insurance man of India and a renowned voice in the global insurance sector. Dr. Singhel is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Bajaj General Insurance, leading one of India's largest private insurers. Additionally, Dr. Singhel chairs both the CII National Committee on Insurance and Pensions and the General Insurance Council. With over 30 years of experience, Dr. Singhel works at the crossroads of financial services, consumer trust, and the role of technology in building a more resilient tomorrow. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today, Dr. Singhel. We hope you're doing well.
It's my honor, Ruhani. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. It's great to have you here. Without further ado, let's get right into the discussion then. First question, in your view, what are the two most important elements in an ethical, safe, and youth-friendly AI integrated future?
See, first and foremost, let's understand how AI is moving currently, no? And let's look at the impact it's going to have on the youth. If you look at from a perspective of jobs, and you have been hearing it all across, that 50% of white-collar jobs would be gone, entry-level jobs would get very, very difficult to get. So I think the biggest challenge from a youth perspective is, will they get job when they graduate, and will people hire them? Now, in my view, the answer for that is people who can solve problems, and people who know what tools to use to solve problems will always be required. Second, people with high-level integrity, ethics at a personal level, and who have high-level empathy will always be required in any structure, in any organization. So when you talk of AI from a youth perspective, I think the first thing they have to think is they should know exactly what all AI is doing, what are the tools available, and they should play with it as they do the curriculum, learn, and keep themselves abreast with what's happening. One. Two, they should also have a lot of empathy, understanding of what are the issues in the world, or the society, or things around, or in organizations, how it is going. They study more of those and figure out how with the tools that they have, which they understand, can they use it for solving issues in the organization or in the society or across. So from a youth perspective, these are two things that they should be very focused on, because my worry is not about how AI works in terms of their perspective. My worry is that across the world, you will have huge amount of unemployment if the youth is not able to redesign or rethink in the way they should look at using, understanding AI, and the way they should look at jobs and being useful in the organization they join, or setting up their own organizations as they may feel so.
Okay, super insightful way to open the discussion. Thank you, Dr. Singhel. Let's move on to the second question then. So as AI becomes more commonplace, we are definitely seeing sort of new risks arise from, deepfakes and fraud to unintentional discrimination that's kind of built into autonomous decision-making calculi. Which of these emerging risks concern you the most, particularly for today's youth? So I think that you touched on sort of the jobs point of view in the previous answer. Are there any other such risks that really concern you when looking at today's youth and how they'll adapt to AI?
Yeah, Ronnie, so the concerns you mentioned, I think with technology, these are common concerns. But let's talk of some of the bigger risks that is emerging. If you see in current world and the current context, trade has become also weaponized in terms of is being used for negotiations. Now, why do you think that if AI becomes all pervasive, be it in organizations, be it right from autonomous vehicles to humanoids, as house helps, and if you look at factories now, you have dark factories in terms of fully automated. You don't require lights to be on there. Or organizations which you are talking of macro hard, where you have zero humans, and and the ambition from Elon Musk's perspective to take on Microsoft and create an organization which has zero human beings, which means LLMs becomes very powerful. And let's say now tomorrow, if a country is fully dependent on this, and the country which is supplying this decides that they switch it off, it can bring down countries to their knees. So I think the risks that you look at when you look at these risks is much beyond the normal risk of fraud and deepfakes that we're talking of. It's also about weaponization of LLMs. It's also about how do you use it? How do you protect your organization, your company, that if something like this happens, that you still run, you're still able to deliver, and you're still able to do things. So the way we saw risks earlier in terms of supply chain management, the way we saw risks, like say today with the war going on, and the Hormuz issue is happening in terms of ships not being able to move, and what risk it's causing even for countries like India. We suddenly start seeing that there will be shortage of LPGs happening. So even disconnected events like this can have far-reaching consequences. So if you ask me, from my perspective, there are much more risks, bigger risks emerging than the ones that you mentioned. Now, the ones that you mentioned, they will always have a self-correcting mechanism. This has continuously happened, in the world. You will have criminals, you will have people, correcting it, making it better, and this is a continuous loop. It doesn't stop. So when you have deepfakes coming, you'll have software which will identify that. You already have that now. When you have frauds happening, you already have I have heard about some of the big companies talking of how they would help their consumers identify frauds and how can they stop it. So all that is emerging. So those things will keep on emerging at a hyperscale. But newer risks and more dangerous risks also get created. And I'm very sure that is how the world has always been. You'll have risks, you'll have solutions, and that's how it will keep on moving.
For sure, and I think especially as you mentioned with the conflict, there's been that recent situation with Anthropic and the U.S. government, trying to use AI to incorporate into national defense, showing how even AI can integrate into things like war and really large-scale issues. So that definitely hits close to home. There are much bigger risks at play than the ones that we sort of perceive first, and they can have really far-reaching consequences. So third question then, how do you see industries like insurance proactively contributing to safer AI ecosystems, given their frequent role as like stabilizer industries during times of uncertainty, like the uncertainty that we are seeing right now with the rise and the revolutions with AI?
The insurance companies, I think they're in the business of risk. And that's why, see, you're talking to insurer. So I'm giving you risk perspectives, which normally if you talk, you'll not get. So we keep on scanning risk. Also try to see what are the risks emerging and how can we provide protection, or mitigate the risk, or help our customers mitigate the risk, and or we bring it to the awareness level so that we can solve it. But do you answer immediately that if you say that can we solve all the liability risk of AI hallucinations in let's say medical field, or in terms of diagnosis, or in the law cases? Now we see a lot of hallucination happening even in the judgments which is being given, and how does it stop that? So answer would be no. I think the insurance companies themselves would be learning and putting it together. But yes, there would be covers for liability covers in such scenarios. There would be kind of cover which would be provided for that things go wrong. How can companies protect themselves? And there would be such kind of covers which would be available. But will it be sufficient in terms of the capacity currently being available for everybody? If everyone wants to buy a cover, the answer still would be no. The development has to happen, and this has to move forward in that direction. So insurance companies, I think that's the beauty of being an insurer. You keep on seeing the risks, and you keep on trying to work to mitigate it, to put it together.
For sure, and I think it's definitely a critical industry, especially with all the uncertainty that we're seeing in the world today, not even just with AI, but in general. So I think that point that you made around development and how that development needs to happen really ties into our last question, which is around who should bear the responsibility in terms of making AI safe, fair, and youth friendly.
The government, large organizations, thought leaders, and youth themselves. Somebody asked me, they said, and there are a lot of predictions that AI would be instrumental in destroying the world. My answer to that was, the way I look at AI, it is a collective consciousness. If you have belief that human beings are good collectively, more good than bad, then I think AI would not be reaching that stage. If you believe they are more bad than good, then you don't require AI to destroy you. You, as humans, you're yourself confident and of doing that to yourself. So fundamentally, if you look at the kind of content that you are creating, the way you are not training the AI is going to go a long way in terms of how it builds up. And if you look at the biggest user of AI, in my view, would be youth. I don't have data points, statistics. Interesting to see that. So you are actually responsible for your own future, is the way I would say that. So be responsible, be accountable, and work the way we train AI to make it very powerful, very helpful, and for the betterment of humankind.
Very powerful message to end off on, with the themes of keeping ourselves accountable even when responsibility does lie with large organizations. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Singhel. It's been a pleasure interviewing you, and thank you so much for coming on the series.
It's my honor, Ruhani, as I mentioned earlier. Thank you so much.
Thank you.